Imagine standing before a mirror that doesn't reflect your current appearance, but instead reflects the version of yourself you secretly long to be. Every smile, every word, every success, and even every failure you see there is shaped not by chance, but by your inner declarations of I am. The truth is, the world is not happening to you. It is happening through you. The phrase, I am, is the most powerful declaration a human being can make. It is not just a statement, it is a creative force. The moment you say, I am confident, I am wealthy, or I am loved, you are planting seeds in the invisible soil of consciousness. And just like seeds, these declarations grow into experiences that mirror them in your outer life. But here's the secret: imagination is the workshop of creation. Every single event you will ever live begins first in the unseen reality of your mind. If you can imagine yourself as already having the life you desire and persist in that inner vision, the world will reorganize itself to bring it forth. Many people live in reaction to what has already been created, not realizing they are simply recycling old thoughts and old states. Yet the moment you shift inward, you can live in the end of your desire as if it were already true. This is not wishful thinking. It is choosing a state of being and making it so real within that the outer must conform. Even the past, which so many believe to be fixed, can be revised. When you look back at an event and choose to reinterpret it, seeing yourself as stronger, wiser, more loved, you alter the way it impacts your present and your future. The past is not your prison, it is clay that can be reshaped. But none of this transformation happens without persistence. The outer world may resist at first, throwing evidence of contradiction in your face. Yet if you remain loyal to your chosen state, if you continue to dwell in, I am what I choose to become, the resistance will eventually dissolve and your assumption will harden into fact. This is the law D. Assumption becomes reality. The identity you consistently claim, the inner dialogues you repeat, and the feelings you nurture will all reflect themselves in the stage of life. The phrase I am carries within it the seed of creation, the invisible essence from which your entire reality unfolds. It is far more than a casual statement of being. It is the silent decree by which you assign identity to yourself and through identity shape the conditions of your world. Every time you affirm I am, followed by a quality, a feeling, or a state, you are impressing that state upon the deepest level of your consciousness. And consciousness is the only true reality. It does not distinguish between what is true or false, what is present or imagined. It only reflects the assumption you most persistently identify with. Thus, your self-concept, your consistent inner claim of I am, becomes the mold from which your outer life is poured. When a person says, I am unworthy, they are not merely describing a temporary feeling. They are programming the mirror of life to reflect situations and people that affirm their sense of unworthiness. On the other hand, if one consistently claims I am valuable, the entire world rearranges itself to bring evidence that supports this self-declaration. The power of I am is that it does not simply describe, it commands. It issues orders to the unseen forces that shape human experience, and those orders are carried out faithfully, without resistance, whether for your flourishing or for your limitation. Consider how often we unconsciously misuse this power. Phrases like, I am tired, I am unlucky, I am not good enough, slip out of the mouth without awareness of the seeds being planted. These statements may seem harmless in the moment, but each repetition reinforces a self-image, and that self-image crystallizes into circumstances. The subconscious mind accepts whatever is impressed upon it with feeling and repetition. It does not argue, it does not reject. It simply molds the outer world to match the inner claim. This is why the transformation of life cannot begin by forcing external change. It must begin with a change in the way you define yourself, in the way you use the words I am. The human tendency is to look outward for validation, to measure worth by accomplishments, possessions, or recognition. Yet all of these are reflections, shadows cast by the inner state. If you believe deeply and consistently, I am successful, that conviction births opportunities, ideas, and relationships that bring success into visibility. If you believe, I am loved, you radiate an energy that naturally attracts affection and harmony from others. Your inner declaration precedes and dictates the outer result. The mistake is in thinking that you must wait for external proof before claiming a new identity, but in truth, the order is reversed. Claim first, embody first, declare first, and the evidence will follow. To live consciously is to become aware of what you are attaching after I am. It requires vigilance, because the world is full of suggestions, opinions, and labels that tempt you to adopt identities that do not serve you. Perhaps you were told growing up, you are not smart enough, or you will never succeed. If you accept these suggestions and internalize them as "I am inadequate," then life will faithfully mirror those assumptions back to you. But the moment you awaken to the creative force of "I am," you realize you are not bound by past labels or inherited beliefs. You can choose a new self-concept. You can say, "I am intelligent, I am capable, I am destined for greatness." And through persistent identification with these truths, your world will reshape accordingly. This principle explains why two people can face the same set of circumstances yet experience vastly different realities. One may declare, "I am a victim of circumstance," and remain trapped in despair, while another may affirm, "I am greater than any challenge," and rise with resilience. The circumstances themselves do not dictate the outcome. It is the self-concept carried within that molds the experience. Life bends to the authority of your chosen identity. When you begin to master this, you step into deliberate creation. Every situation becomes an opportunity to reaffirm who you choose to be. If you face financial struggle, instead of reinforcing the state with thoughts like, "I am broke," you shift to "I am abundant," and hold that inner knowing until the outer aligns. If you experience loneliness, instead of saying, "I am alone," you persist in "I am surrounded by love," and your reality begins to echo that vibration. The transformation does not occur through force or effort, but through consistent alignment with a chosen identity. The subtlety of this truth is that "I am" always works, it is never inactive. Whether you consciously choose empowering identities or unconsciously repeat limiting ones, you are always shaping your reality. Awareness gives you the ability to take the steering wheel, to stop drifting in the current of old assumptions and begin to navigate with intention. The words you place after "I am" are creative decrees, and by them you are building the house in which you live. The great work, then, is not to struggle with external conditions, but to refine your inner speech, to become disciplined in your declarations. Speak to yourself as the person you choose to be, not as the person you fear you are. Carry the feeling of your chosen identity as though it were already fact, and soon enough, the mirror of life will prove you right. The truth is simple yet profound. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest who you believe you are. And who you are is determined by the quiet but powerful phrase you whisper to yourself again and again. "I am." Imagination is not a childish escape or a fleeting daydream. It is the very foundation of creation, the invisible workshop where all realities are conceived before they take shape in the external world. Everything you now see around you, every invention, structure, relationship, or achievement began first as an inner image, a picture held in someone's mind before it ever became visible to others. The chair you sit on, the device you hold, the building you occupy, all were once ideas in imagination, and through persistence and belief, they moved from the unseen to the seen. This truth reveals that imagination is not mere fantasy, but the creative substance of life itself, the origin of every experience you will ever encounter. When you imagine, you are not simply entertaining idle thoughts. You are forming blueprints that consciousness takes seriously. The mind does not differentiate between a vividly imagined scene and a physical event. It registers both as reality. Neuroscience even affirms that the brain fires in the same way when you visualize yourself performing an act as when you actually perform it. This is why athletes rehearse victory in their imagination before they step onto the field, why visionaries see the completed picture long before the world acknowledges it, and why artists can feel the essence of a creation before a single stroke of paint is laid on canvas. Imagination is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between thought and manifestation. Yet the true power of imagination goes beyond simply picturing external achievements. Every circumstance you call your reality today has its roots in the imaginal acts you once entertained, whether consciously or unconsciously. The feelings you repeatedly dwell on, the inner dialogues you rehearse in the privacy of your mind, the scenes you replay and the fantasies you nurture, all of these weave together to form the tapestry of your outer life. When you continually imagine limitation, rejection, or failure, you are planting seeds that eventually sprout into corresponding experiences. When you imagine joy, abundance, and fulfillment with conviction, you are likewise shaping a reality that reflects those qualities. Consider how often people underestimate this principle by dismissing their imagination as not real. They replay painful memories, rehearse worst-case scenarios, and indulge in fear-filled images, believing these are harmless since they exist only in thought. Yet imagination is not passive, it is creative. To continually picture yourself failing an exam, losing a relationship, or struggling financially is to impress those states upon the subconscious, which then molds your world to fit those impressions. What is held within will always seek expression without. On the other hand, those who understand the potency of imagination use it deliberately. They do not wait for the world to give them permission to feel successful or loved. They imagine the scene of already being the person they desire to be. They rehearse conversations where others congratulate them. They envision bank accounts reflecting abundance. They see themselves living in harmony, and they allow the feelings of fulfillment to wash over them now. This act of imaginative living is not wishful thinking, but the conscious occupation of a new state of being. And because imagination creates reality, that state must, in time, externalize as fact. The secret is to experience the imaginal act with such vividness and emotional involvement that it feels real to you in the present. When you close your eyes and picture yourself walking confidently into a room, shaking hands with someone who respects you, or receiving a message of good news, and when you allow the joy of that moment to fill your body as though it were happening now, you are aligning with the reality you wish to manifest. The subconscious accepts that feeling as truth, and the external world reorganizes itself to mirror it back. The outer is always a reflection of the inner, and imagination is the source of the inner state. History is filled with examples of those who lived by this principle. Inventors who saw possibilities before anyone else believed in them. Leaders who envisioned futures that seemed impossible. Individuals who held an image of themselves beyond their present limitations. All transformed the world through their inner vision. What they achieved outwardly was the natural consequence of what they first conceived inwardly. The same power resides in every individual. There is no one exempt from the law that imagination creates reality, though most use it unconsciously to perpetuate their current circumstances instead of consciously to transcend them. To live deliberately, then, is to recognize imagination as the primary cause of experience and to guard it with intention. It is to become aware of the images you allow to dominate your inner world and to replace those that do not serve you with visions of the life you truly desire. This requires discipline, because the mind is easily tempted to dwell on appearances, but appearances are only the echo of past imaginings. If you want to alter the future, you must change the imaginal act you are nurturing now. Imagination does not operate only in moments of deliberate visualization, it works constantly. The casual daydream, the quiet worry before sleep, the mental rehearsals of conversations. All of these are imaginal acts shaping your tomorrows. To master your imagination is to master your destiny. It is to stop reacting to the present as though it were permanent and to begin creating from the unseen, knowing that what you vividly imagine with feeling is already on its way to becoming fact. The understanding that imagination creates reality dissolves the illusion of helplessness. No matter what external conditions may currently appear, you hold within you the ability to imagine something greater, to feel it real, and to persist until it takes form. Life is not imposed upon you from outside, it is projected from within you. Every experience you have ever lived originated first as a thought, a feeling, or a vision in the silent chamber of imagination, and every future experience will be born in the same way. Living in the end is one of the most profound principles of inner transformation, because it invites you to step beyond appearances and take your place in the reality you desire before it has yet taken shape in the outer world. It requires a shift in perspective, a willingness to embody the identity and the emotions of the person who already has what they seek, regardless of whether current circumstances agree. Instead of waiting for confirmation from the external world, you begin to carry yourself as though your wish were already accomplished. And in doing so, you impress this truth upon your subconscious mind, which inevitably molds the outer world to reflect it. The mistake most people make is to wait for something to happen before they allow themselves to feel it. They wait to see money in the bank before they feel wealthy. They wait to receive love before they feel lovable. They wait for success before they walk in confidence. But this approach is inverted, for the outer world is only an echo of the inner state. To wait for proof before you embody the feeling is to delay the very manifestation you desire. Living in the end means reversing this order. You feel first, you embody first, you declare within yourself that it is already so, and then you allow the mirror of life to reflect that assumption back to you in due time. Imagine, for example, the longing for financial freedom. If one continues to think and feel from the state of lack, repeating inner dialogues like, "I don't have enough," or "I need money," they are perpetuating the state of absence, and the world will continue to echo that state. But if one dares to shift into the feeling of already being abundant, carrying the inner knowing that their needs are already met, walking with the calm assurance of wealth, and allowing gratitude to arise as though the financial freedom were already true. The subconscious accepts this as reality. And because the subconscious is the creative power of life, it orchestrates circumstances, opportunities, and alignments that give physical expression to the inner state of abundance. The same applies to love. Many people long for relationships while simultaneously dwelling in feelings of loneliness or unworthiness. This inner state contradicts the desire and thus perpetuates the absence of love. Living in the end requires that you enter the state of being already loved, already chosen, already cherished. You feel the joy of companionship now. You walk with the dignity of someone who knows they are adored. You imagine conversations and experiences that affirm your worthiness. By persisting in that state, you align your vibration with the experience of love, and life has no choice but to mirror it back. Living in the end is not about pretending or forcing yourself to act out roles disconnected from your truth. It is about embodying the inner conviction that the unseen is just as real as the seen. When an actor prepares for a role, they immerse themselves in the emotions and thoughts of the character until they become indistinguishable from the role itself. Likewise, when you live in the end, you step into the role of your fulfilled self. You think as they would think, feel as they would feel, speak as they would speak, and gradually the boundaries between imagination and reality dissolve until the external world reflects your inner performance. Skeptics might argue that this is self-deception, but the opposite is true. The deception is believing that appearances are the final authority. Living in the end acknowledges that appearances are temporary and malleable, subject to the greater authority of consciousness. By embodying the wish fulfilled, you are aligning with the deeper truth that imagination precedes creation. The feeling you sustain within yourself is the seed from which outer reality grows. Persistence plays a vital role in this process. Outer conditions may at first contradict the inner state you are cultivating. You may declare within yourself that you are successful, yet face rejection or setbacks. In these moments, the temptation is to abandon the inner conviction and return to old patterns of lack and doubt. But living in the end requires loyalty to your chosen state, even when the evidence has not yet appeared. You persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not because you are denying reality, but because you are creating a new one. With time, persistence dissolves resistance, and the outer must conform to the inner decree. This principle also applies to healing and personal growth. Someone who has struggled with insecurity may choose to live in the end of confidence. They may begin by imagining themselves walking with poise, speaking with authority, and being respected by others. Even if they currently feel shy, they embody the confidence of their desired self in imagination until it becomes natural. Gradually, the subconscious aligns the body, the posture, the voice, and the opportunities to match that inner confidence. What was once a deliberate act becomes an effortless expression of identity. Living in the end demands faith, but not faith in the sense of blind belief. It is the faith that comes from inner knowing, from the recognition that consciousness is the root of all experience. When you claim your desire as already fulfilled in consciousness, you are not hoping. It is already accomplished within. That conviction draws the outer world into harmony with your inner declaration. Every great achievement in history began with someone who dared to live in the end. They saw the vision before others could see it. They felt the reality before it appeared, and they remained faithful to it until the world was compelled to catch up. The same creative power resides in you, waiting for you to use it deliberately. To live in the end is to stop waiting for permission from external proof and to begin embodying your destiny in the present moment, here and now, as though it were already true. Revision of the past is one of the most liberating practices available to the human mind, because it reveals that the past is not fixed in stone, but fluid in memory and perception. While many people drag their past like a heavy chain, believing that what has been must forever determine what is, the truth is that past events only hold power over you to the extent that you continue to give them life in your imagination. Every time you replay a painful memory, rehearse an old argument, or revisit a failure, you are reactivating the emotional charge of that event, and by doing so you allow it to project its influence into your present and future. But the moment you dare to revise the past, to reinterpret it, to reimagine it, you dissolve its hold and create a new pattern for your life to follow. Revision does not mean denial or suppression. It is not about pretending something never happened, but about reclaiming your authority over how you choose to view and internalize the event. Suppose you were humiliated in childhood, told by a teacher that you would never succeed. If you carry that moment unchanged in your memory, every time you recall it, you feel the sting of shame and limitation, and that feeling colors your self-concept. But revision invites you to close your eyes, return to that scene in imagination, and replay it differently. You imagine the teacher praising you, encouraging you, affirming your intelligence. You hear words of empowerment instead of ridicule. You feel the warmth of pride rather than the sting of humiliation. As you persist in this revision, the subconscious begins to register the new memory as real, and its influence begins to replace the old one. The subconscious mind is not bound by linear time. It responds only to impressions. It cannot distinguish between what happened in the past and what is vividly imagined now. When you revise a memory, you are not erasing history in the outer world, but you are altering the inner record that shapes your identity and experience. Since your life is determined not by what objectively happened, but by how you internalized it, revising that interpretation alters the trajectory of your present and your future. In this way, the past loses its power to chain you to cycles of pain, shame, or limitation. Think of someone who experienced rejection in love. If they continue to replay the memory of being left, they reinforce feelings of abandonment and unworthiness, and those feelings echo into future relationships. But if they revise the scene, imagining instead being cherished, chosen, and loved, they rewire the emotional imprint. The subconscious accepts the new image as truth, and their self-concept shifts from "I am unwanted" to "I am deeply loved." From that new foundation, life mirrors back experiences that align with love and acceptance rather than rejection. Revision also applies to mistakes and regrets. How many people torment themselves with thoughts like, "If only I had done things differently"? They replay decisions that brought pain and rehearse scenes of failure, keeping themselves locked in cycles of guilt. But guilt is only sustained because the mind continues to give energy to an unchanged past. Revision offers freedom. You can revisit the moment of the mistake, not to relive the pain, but to reshape it. You can imagine yourself making the wise decision, responding with courage, or succeeding in the task. By doing so, you lift the weight of regret and begin to walk with the confidence of someone who has always been capable, always been wise, always been enough. Skeptics might wonder how revising an event in imagination can possibly change anything in the real world. But what they overlook is that your present actions, attitudes, and expectations are all conditioned by how you carry your past. If your past is filled with memories of failure, you approach life with hesitation and doubt. If your past is revised into triumphs and affirmations, you approach life with confidence and boldness. The outer results that follow are directly shaped by the state you carry, and that state is shaped by how you perceive the past. In this way, revision is not about altering history, it is about altering identity, and identity is what determines destiny. There is also a deeper dimension to revision. Since all of life is consciousness when you revise a scene, you are not merely soothing your own memory, you are altering the energetic pattern of that event across time. Many who practice revision consistently find that relationships shift, outcomes improve, and even people involved in the original event seem to behave differently in the present. This suggests that revision is not simply psychological but metaphysical, reaching into the fabric of reality itself. The practice of revision can be incorporated into daily life. At the end of each day, as you prepare to sleep, review the events of the day in your mind. If there are moments you wish had unfolded differently, an argument, a disappointment, a missed opportunity, replay them in imagination as you would have desired them to occur. See yourself speaking with wisdom, hear others responding with kindness, feel the satisfaction of success. Let this revised scene be the last impression upon your mind before sleep, knowing that the subconscious will carry it as truth. Over time, this nightly practice begins to reshape not only your memories but the pattern of your days, until life begins to reflect the revised script you have given it. The liberation that comes from revision is profound. No longer are you at the mercy of what once happened. You are no longer condemned to carry the weight of past wounds or failures. Instead, you awaken to the realization that you are the author of your own story, and the chapters that seem to be written in pain can be rewritten in love, victory, and freedom. The past does not imprison you unless you allow it to remain unchallenged in imagination. By daring to revise, you reclaim your creative power and open the door to a present and future that reflect who you truly choose to be. Persistence in inner vision is the cornerstone of transformation, because it demands that you remain loyal to the state you have chosen within, even when everything around you seems to deny it. When you decide who you are and what you desire to experience, the outer world often presents contradictions, delays, and evidence that appear to mock your inner conviction. Yet this resistance is not a sign of failure, but of the natural lag between the unseen cause and its visible effect. Just as a seed planted in the soil takes time to break through the surface and reveal its growth, the assumptions you persist in holding within require steadfastness before they crystallize into form. To persist in inner vision is to keep your focus on the end, to refuse to surrender to appearances, and to trust that what you nurture within will, in time, be expressed without. The human tendency is to react to the external world as though it were the ultimate authority, forgetting that the outer is merely an echo of the inner. A person may choose to dwell in the feeling of abundance, yet when bills arrive or money seems scarce, they abandon the vision and return to the state of lack. Another may decide to affirm their worthiness of love, but when faced with rejection, they retreat into the familiar identity of unworthiness. In doing so, they break the continuity of their inner conviction, and the seed of desire is uprooted before it has time to grow. Persistence demands a different approach. It requires that you hold to the vision, even when appearances seem to contradict it, that you declare within yourself, "I am," even when the outer world says you are not. Consider the artist who conceives a masterpiece in their imagination. Before the canvas shows a single mark, the vision is alive within them. If they were to stop at the first brushstroke, discouraged that the painting does not yet resemble the masterpiece in their mind, the work would never be completed. Instead, they persist, stroke after stroke, until the external canvas matches the inner vision. In the same way, persistence in inner vision ensures that the external canvas of life eventually conforms to what is held within. This principle is equally evident in the stories of those who have achieved great success. Many of them faced rejection, obstacles, and repeated failure. Yet what distinguished them was not luck, but unwavering persistence in their vision. They saw themselves as successful, capable, and destined for achievement long before the world agreed with them. They endured setbacks not as signs of impossibility, but as temporary shadows, unable to extinguish the light of their conviction. It was their refusal to surrender the inner vision that eventually compelled reality to align with it. Persistence is not simply repeating affirmations mechanically, it is the sustained feeling of the wish fulfilled, the quiet inner knowing that refuses to be shaken by appearances. It is returning again and again to the inner state you have chosen, regardless of how many times the outer world tries to pull you into doubt. When thoughts of fear or lack arise, persistence gently but firmly redirects attention to the desired end, reminding yourself of who you truly are. In time, this loyalty to the vision outweighs the old patterns of belief, and the subconscious reorganizes reality to reflect the new assumption. Outer resistance is often strongest just before the vision breaks through. This is the moment when many give up, interpreting obstacles as proof that their desire cannot manifest. But those who persist understand that resistance is only the inertia of old states attempting to maintain their hold. The persistence of a new vision inevitably dissolves the old, for consciousness cannot serve two masters. The state you consistently occupy, the identity you continually claim, will always overpower the one you abandon. Persistence also requires patience, for the timing of manifestation is not always immediate. Just as nature operates by seasons, so too do imaginal acts ripen in their own appointed time. The farmer who plants a seed does not dig it up each day to check whether it is growing. They trust the process, water the soil, and persist until the harvest comes. Likewise, persistence in inner vision means trusting that the unseen processes are already in motion, even when you cannot yet see their results. This persistence does not mean straining or forcing outcomes. It is not about fighting against the present moment, but about calmly and steadily holding to the end. The feeling of the wish fulfilled becomes your anchor, your home, your resting place. You carry yourself as though it were already accomplished, and you return to that inner knowing whenever doubts arise. Over time, this inner persistence becomes second nature, and the vision feels more real than the appearances that once contradicted it. Through persistence, you begin to see that the outer world is far more flexible than it appears. Situations shift, people behave differently. Opportunities arise, and circumstances rearrange themselves in ways you could not have predicted. What once seemed immovable bends under the weight of your inner loyalty. The reality you experience is not determined by chance, but by the state you persistently occupy. Every great transformation begins with a choice of inner vision and is sustained by persistence. Without persistence, desires remain fleeting wishes, easily swept away by appearances. With persistence, desires harden into fact, for consciousness cannot resist the steady imprint of a sustained assumption. To persist is to declare within yourself again and again that the vision is real, that the end is accomplished, and that no external contradiction can alter the truth of who you have chosen to be. Assumption becomes fact is one of the most powerful truths about the nature of reality, for it shows that what you repeatedly claim as true within yourself eventually crystallizes into the outer world as lived experience. Assumptions are not fleeting thoughts or idle wishes. They are the convictions you accept and persist in, the silent beliefs that shape your identity and expectations. Every assumption you hold is like a seed planted in the fertile soil of consciousness, and through the nourishment of feeling and repetition, it takes root and grows into circumstances that mirror it. To assume something is to give it authority in your inner world, and once it is accepted as true within, it becomes unavoidable that it will manifest without. At first glance, this idea may appear unbelievable because the world seems to present itself as objective, independent, and fixed. Yet a closer look reveals that every event and circumstance is filtered through perception, and perception is determined by assumption. Two people may face the same situation, but their experiences differ entirely because of the assumptions they bring to it. One assumes life is hard and sees obstacles everywhere. Another assumes life supports me and finds opportunities in the same environment. The outer conditions have not changed, but the assumptions through which they are interpreted create vastly different realities. Assumption acts as an inner law, directing attention, shaping behavior, and influencing interactions. If someone assumes they are unworthy of love, they unconsciously sabotage relationships, misinterpret kindness as pity, and attract partners who confirm their belief. If they assume instead that they are deeply lovable, they radiate confidence, interpret affection as natural, and attract experiences that validate their worth. What they assume about themselves dictates the role they play, and life faithfully mirrors that role back to them. The process is subtle yet constant. Every time you declare within yourself, I am, you are assuming an identity. When you say, I am unlucky, I am shy, or I am poor, you are not simply describing circumstances. You are affirming assumptions that harden into the facts of your life. Conversely, when you declare, I am confident, I am prosperous, or I am loved, you are choosing assumptions that will eventually manifest as facts. The subconscious mind, which governs the unfolding of experience, does not question these assumptions. It accepts them as orders and organizes reality accordingly. This truth explains why some individuals remain trapped in cycles of limitation. They may wish for better outcomes, but if their dominant assumption is that nothing ever works out for them, the wish remains powerless. Desire alone cannot manifest without the support of assumption. The moment they shift their self-concept and assume a new identity, the world begins to rearrange itself to reflect the new state. In this way, assumption becomes the bridge between desire and fulfillment. Assumption is not about forcing belief or denying appearances. It is about choosing to embody the feeling of your desired state until it becomes natural. When you assume wealth, you begin to think, feel, and act from the perspective of abundance, even if your bank account has not yet changed. When you assume health, you carry yourself with the vitality and confidence of one who is whole, even if the body has not yet reflected it. This inner alignment gradually hardens into outer fact because consciousness precedes form. Persistence plays a crucial role in this process. A single assumption held briefly may not be enough to overturn years of contrary belief. Just as a seed requires time and nurturing to become a tree, an assumption requires consistency to become fact. Doubts, fears, and contradictory evidence may arise, but if you return again and again to the chosen assumption, it gains strength. Eventually, it becomes your natural state of being, and once it is natural within, it must express itself without. History and personal experience offer countless examples of this principle in action. Consider inventors and visionaries who assumed the possibility of ideas the world declared impossible. Their assumptions sustained them through ridicule, setbacks, and failure until their vision became fact. Consider those who have risen from poverty to abundance, who first assumed within themselves that they were destined for more, even when their environment gave them no evidence. Their inner conviction compelled the outer world to conform. These stories are not exceptions. They are demonstrations of the law that assumption hardens into fact. The danger lies in unconscious assumption. Many people live unaware of the beliefs they carry, repeating patterns handed down by family, culture, or past experiences. They assume limitation because it is familiar, not realizing that they are giving it power through their continued acceptance. The key to transformation is awareness. Becoming conscious of what you assume and deliberately choosing assumptions that align with the life you desire. Every time you catch yourself affirming a limiting belief, you have the opportunity to replace it with an empowering one. Over time, these new assumptions form a new reality. Assumption is creative because it shapes not only how you interpret the present, but also what you expect from the future. When you assume success, you notice opportunities you would have otherwise ignored. You take actions aligned with confidence, and you attract circumstances that validate your belief. When you assume failure, you overlook opportunities, act with hesitation, and invite results that confirm your doubt. The outer facts are always the echo of the inner assumption. To master assumption is to master life. It is to realize that you are not a victim of chance, but the author of your experience. By choosing your assumptions with intention and persisting in them, you direct the course of your destiny. The world is a mirror, and the image it reflects is none other than the one you hold within. Whatever you consistently assume about yourself and the world will, sooner or later, harden into the facts of your existence. So I ask you today, who do you choose to be? Will you continue to let the world tell you who you are? Or will you stand in the authority of your own mind and declare, I am what I choose to become? Your mind is not a servant of circumstances. It is the master of them. Begin to claim your I am with intention, with faith, and with persistence. And watch as the mirror of life reflects back not who you once were, but who you have boldly chosen to become.